Hello, my fellow notes friends. With our simple whiteboard discussions, we hope to help you in understanding the key topics in philosophy in an incredibly easy way. In today's whiteboard, we will address the question, what is ethics? The term ethics is derived from the Greek word ethos, which originally means custom or character. Broadly construed, ethics is a branch of philosophy that studies the rightness or wrongness of a human action. In particular, this branch of philosophy is concerned with questions of how human persons ought to act in the search for a definition of right conduct and a good life. It is for this reason that the attempt to seek the good through the aid of reason is the traditional goal of ethicists. It must be noted, however, that there is no single absolute definition of ethics. This is because ethics as a discipline is constantly evolving as a result of change in socio-cultural and political context. For example, in the Greek tradition, ethics was conceived as relating to the concept of the good life. Thus, the ethical inquiry during this time was directed toward discovering the nature of happiness. In fact, Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics does not only present a theory of happiness, but also provides ways in which happiness is attained. Now, centuries later, a quite different orientation was introduced by the Judeo-Christian tradition. And this ethical tradition, the ideals of righteousness before God and the love of God and neighbor, not happy or pleasant life, constitute the substance of ethics. And if we make an effort to reconcile these views, we face with a difficult task of defining the relationship, doing what is right and being happy. Again, it is for this reason that we cannot have an absolute definition of ethics. The least that we can do, in my opinion, is to describe the nature and dynamics of ethics based on specific time and concepts. It is also important to note that ethics is not the same with morality. Although many philosophers believe that the two terms can be used interchangeably, this is because the former denotes the theory of right action and the greater good, while the latter indicates practice that is the rightness or wrongness of a human action. In other words, ethics undertakes the systematic study of the underlying principles of morality. Hence, it is interested primarily in the illustration of a more general problem and the examination of underlying assumptions and the critical evaluation of moral principles. Morality, on the other hand, is more prescriptive in nature. It tells us what we ought to do and exhorts us to follow the right way. According to Terence McConnell, morality is characterized as an end-governed rational enterprise whose object is to equip people with a body of norms that make for peaceful and collectively satisfying coexistence. By facilitating their living together and interacting in a way that is productive for the realization of general benefit. For example, a religious leader may ask her followers to be a good at all times. In this way, a moralist may want to keep alive the values she considers to be worthwhile and to improve the moral quality of the community where she belongs. Hence, morality as the very last aims to guide one's action by reason and gives equal weight to the interest of each individual affected by one's decision. Indeed, his gives us a picture of what it really means to be a morally upright person. And so we may conclude that ethics is the science of morals while morality is a practice of ethics. During the mid-20th century, according to Sumner, a certain theory in the methodology of ethics has gradually become more and more widely accepted, at least by British and American moral philosophers. According to his position, there are two ways of doing ethical inquiry, namely normative ethics and meta-ethics.
On the other hand, normative ethics is prescriptive in nature as it seeks to set norms or standards. This may involve articulating the good habits that we should acquire the duties so we shall follow the consequences of our behavior on others. Hence, normative ethics normally tell us how we ought to behave. An example: Immanuel Kant claimed that an act is morally right if it is done for the sake of duty is an example of a normative ethics. Metaethics, on the other hand, is descriptive in nature. According to Summer, metaethics is largely constituted at least in part by questions of the meanings of the various ethical terms and functions of ethical inquiry, and hence if a normative ethical inquiry is evaluative and prescriptive. Metaethics is an elliptical and descriptive. Put simply, metaethics is a type of ethical inquiry that aims to understand the nature and dynamics of ethical principles. It asks questions about the nature and origin of moral facts as well as the way in which we learn and acquire.
Thus, for example, moral ethics urges us to do good at all times. Moral ethics as the question what is good. For sure, if a moral philosopher attempts to ask this question what is good, what is justice, where should be a moral? Then the moral philosopher is a going moral ethics, hence with play to purpose and answer the question, where should I be moral? Plato was going moral ethics, needed Plato raise a moral ethical question. In the course of the development of ethics, applied ethics become its third major type as its name judges. Applied ethics is actual application of ethical and moral theories for the purpose of deciding which ethical or moral action are appreciated in a given situation.
For the reason casuistry adherents of applied ethics are concerned with individual moral problems such as abortion or euthanasia and attempt to resolve the conflict issues that surround these particular moral problems. Casuistry also act as on some occasions in the advisory capacity, such as guiding individuals in their choices of actions. For example, they may attempt to resolve the conflicting duties of a mother suffering from ectopic pregnancy who has no other options than to abort the fetus. Applied ethics is usually divided into different fields. For example, when we talk about business ethics, which deals with ethical behavior in the corporate world, biomedical and environmental ethics, which deal with issues relating to health, welfare, and the responsibility we have toward people in our environment, and social ethics, which deals with the principles and guiding that regulate cooperating welfare societies.
Finally, the difference between the three major types of ethics can be illustrated. Officers shot a terrorist who is about to blow up a crowded shopping mall. The act of the police officers is morally wrong according because it is always wrong to kill. As is well known, killing in itself is intrinsically wrong. However, if the police officers does not shoot the terrorist men, innocent people will die or get injured. To the police officers act may be wrong, the adherents of ignore motive ethics may say that it is the right thing to do in this particular situation because not doing so will result in the death of so many people. Hence, the action might be morally correct. Finally, the caso essay that the police is to fulfill his duty, that is to protect as many innocent lives as possible.